Hello everyone. In today's training, we will cover how to configure and set up the workflows. And these workflows definitely out of the box workflows. And separately, I have already recorded a training video for how to develop a custom workflow, which is not available out of the box. So, but in this one, we will cover out of the box workflows and what are various elements in those workflows. So let's begin. So there is an overview about. First, we'll start with what is a workflow. We will define the workflow. What are the benefits and where we use workflows and its use cases or examples. And then we'll move on to workflow types which are available and what are those. What do we mean by workflow type and for the same type how the multiple workflows we can configure and similarly multiple configuration for each type. And next we'll move to workflow elements, and by this we mean that whatever the elements or parts of workflow, the normal workflow and the line type of workflow, what are various elements and what are their uses, and how we'll cover also that in demo. And then workflow parameters we will cover briefly, and then what are the workflow versions, and then we'll move on to the demonstration. So so what is basically a workflow? Workflow in before a digital world or before ERP world or any software, normally what happened that whatever the document or anything was drafted, so it used to go physically from one place, one office holder to another office holder. So it depend upon positions or designation, what are the various levels of approvals, and what is the value of that document. For example, if there is a PO, purchase order, or if there is an invoice, so what are various values on which, whatever higher level of hierarchy will be involved in those cases. So workflow we can define simply a business process flow, and in which various levels of approval hierarchy is involved. So by it also we mean that document flows or moves through the system now, and it also involves various participants. We involve the participant, and there can be a task also external to the system definitely, and there can be a system task as well, where a system will perform certain duties or tasks, and then there can be a decision which can be made that is out of the system as well, or there can be an approval of document during this whole flow. And then of course the workflows in the system are available across the modules. There are various modules in D365 FinOps, which includes, for example, account payable, account receivable, like finance module, journal ledger, and bank module also, and similarly procurement and sourcing. And there are various modules which already provide out of the box workflows. So workflow support in managing the business process to route documents for review and approval. So so the use cases, what are the use cases for workflow? Workflow as a system is also provided in FinOps apps, and basically it provides a functionality where we can create our own individual workflow or business processes. And similarly, workflow as a business process is also, as we mentioned, that it is a process in which a document flows through the system by displaying who must process it and who must approve it. And approval can be multiple levels of approval. And workflow types, for example, whenever we go to a certain module, so there are certain workflow types which are available there out of the box, and which we can use to configure a new workflow, and we can configure various elements of those workflows. Similarly, multiple workflow for same type is also possible, where we can have multiple workflow of the same type. And in the example, we can take an example. For example, there is a purchase requisition workflow, and purchase requisition works across the companies or legal entities. So it is an organization wide workflow, and per legal entity, it cannot be configured per legal entity, but it is organization wide, and for each country or region we can configure a separate purchase requisition workflow. For example, for if there is an entity in US or in UK or any other country, so uh, same type of workflow, that is purchase requisition, can be configured for each country separately. So that is called an organization wide workflow. And there are certain workflow which are shared across multiple legal entities, which we call it as organization wide, which we call as organization wide workflows. And there are certain workflow which are only specific to the legal entity. For example, purchase order workflow is specific to one legal entity, but purchase requisition is organization wide. And similarly, there can be multiple configuration for each workflow type, and the workflow configuration is based upon type, and we can create multiple configuration for each of the type. And we can, for example, the example here is given of journal ledger, in which journal setup, we can go and check out the journal ledger workflow page, and then we can create a new workflow type. And also for different journal numbers, different journal setups, we can configure a separate workflow as well. And these journals are configurable through journal ledger module, which works across the finance module. So then there is an association. By association means the scope of workflow. It can be, as I mentioned, that for example in this screenshot we can also see purchase requisition line review or purchase requisition review. Both are organization wide workflow. So their scope is across all the legal entities. And then there is a purchase order workflow, which is per company basis or per legal entity basis. So that is an association. And what we do when there is no out of the box workflow, so definitely one of the option which I also covered in my technical video is to develop a custom workflow. But before that, we need to ensure that there is no out of the box workflow for that specific document or that specific area. So some modules do not have any workflow type at all. You may also find that the type of workflow you need to address a certain business requirement does not exist. If this is the case, so definitely, as mentioned here, development team can create a whole workflow type in FinOps app using Visual Studio, and that I already covered. If you can check out my playlist of technical videos, so that is already covered there. And then also, if workflow does not exist, we can somehow, as a workaround, we can use the case management workflow as well, which can relate to multiple documents or a single document at a time. And that is also a possibility when there is no out of the box workflow. So we can use some of the workflow in case management module itself, and I will try to cover that one in future, how to do that. And similarly, another alternate now which Microsoft is also recommending to use Power Automate flows, which works outside the system, but through connector we can use the data from D365 or any other system like SharePoint. So Power Automate flows are now available as a part of Power Platform. So that is also a possibility. And then uh, also it is mentioned that as a precaution that it is better that we first find out that any out of the box workflow is available. If it is available, then we can use that one. If it is not available, so the last resort should be there to develop our own, as per our business requirement, a new workflow. So then there is, when we configure a workflow, their properties and elements. So there are multiple items which we can configure, and among which is, for example, tasks. A task is a unit of work that must be performed. So there are two kind of tasks. There is one manual task and one is automated task. Manual task we mean another, external to the system. Some task we need to perform for, or maybe system task like reviewing a certain document, but ultimately nothing will be input in our workflow, but that can be a manual task. And automated task is when system performs certain tasks. So, for example, a credit check can be a system task, or for example, a customer creation when it does not exist. So, that can be a system task. But manual task is when a human being is performing certain tasks, for example, review of certain document, or some external task also can be a manual task. And then there are approval processes which are available as an element in the workflow, and those are having, for example, line item workflow elements also, and control elements are then also available. So in line item workflow elements, a workflow can be created to process either documents or the line items on a document. So that is also a possibility. And flow control elements are, for example, there are manual decisions, uh, deciding on the basis of certain value of the document, or any, for example, a quality of something, quality of inventory. And then there can be a conditional decisions, and those conditional decisions can be, for example, total amount of purchase order. If it exceeds to 10,000 USD, then it will go to another hierarchy level, or any higher management will also be involved. And if even it goes to 50,000 USD, then CEO might be involved. So those are conditional decisions taken by system itself, based upon certain criteria coming from the document. And then there can be parallel activities when there are two parallel activities going on in workflow. And similarly, a sub workflow can also exist. For example, in purchase requisition, there can be a line level workflow as well as on a header level or purchase requisition wide workflow. And if there is certain, for example, a criteria is not fulfilled, then every line will be the line level workflow will be triggered. Otherwise, it will take another path, and it will go through another nodes in that workflow. That so in that case, sub workflows can also exist, and same workflow can also exist as a sub workflow. So it depends upon configuration. So what are again repeating the same thing, like in further explanation or examples, workflow elements. For example, manual task, as I described before also, a manual task is a unit of work that must be performed by a user. For example, an expense report workflow can have manual tasks that require the assigned users to complete the following actions: review the receipts that are submitted with an expense report, and also it can be an external task like calling an employees manager. So that can be an external task. And then what can be an automated task? That can be a unit of work that must be performed by the system. No human interaction in that case is required. For example, sales order workflow can have automated tasks that require the system to complete the following actions, like performing a credit check on the customer, whether he or she, I mean the company, is exceeding the certain credit limit. So that cannot be further given service, or inventory or stock could not be sold until they start paying it. So that credit check can be performed by the system. Similarly, to create a customer record when customer record already does not exist, so that can also be an example of automated task. So when there are automated tasks out of the box not available, so then we can customize through developers those automated tasks. So approval processes are also the element of workflow, and at each approval step the user can perform following actions. For example, approve a document, reject a document, or requesting a change to the document, assign the document to another user for approval. So what are the scenarios when this will happen? Normally, approved document can further have multiple steps as well. That depends upon how many level of hierarchy we can. It depends upon the value. So some of the time, or we can also for example to counter check that something is missed from a person or a position holder, so it's better to include 2 or 3 levels of hierarchy to approve the document. And reject a document means it will go back to the originator once you reject it. For example, a purchase requisition based upon business justification can be rejected, that it is not justified based upon the justification or reasons provided, that whatever the services or items are required, so those are not justified. So until it is again filled in and filled in accurately, that can be rejected from the approval authority. And then request a change to the document means whenever document needs certain, if there are errors or certain things are missed in the document, then the approval authority can notice it and then can assign back to the any of the levels previously, or directly to the originator who has originated the workflow, and assign the document to another user for approval. Can be, for example, on the same level, or might be a person is on leave. So there is another option of delegation is also available, that can also be possible. But here also, for example, there are two similar kind of positions, and one position is looking after certain area. By area I mean, for example, certain countries are under the hold of that person, and there are certain countries which are to person B, under person B. So in that case, if mistakenly the document is assigned to person A, so then he find out that it is not under his or her domain, so it will be assigned back to the person B, who is the more appropriate person for that document. So that can be also possible, manual assignment. So these all steps are configurable and can also be disabled. So so it can have multiple steps as well. So it means we can have multiple approval yani in one node of approve, we can have multiple steps inside. So then it means then into those multiple steps the approving action can be performed. So then there can be line item workflow elements. For example, as I mentioned that in purchase acquisition there is a line item workflow available. So not all workflow types are supporting line item. So but in PR definitely it supports the line item base. And I think purchase order is also supporting the line item based workflow, and also mentioned here. So and it will it can also work side by side as a sub workflow element as well. So in this screenshot you can see purchase order workflow editor screen, and here you can see on the left hand side multiple elements are shown, uh, where in approval node we can see approve purchase order and approve purchase order editable. So these are two kind of nodes when we are allowing the person to edit also, and when we do not allow the person which is in approval authority to edit that document, rather the it should go back to the originator and then he or she can change the document. And then there are certain flow controls like conditional decisions, manual decisions, parallel activity, and sub workflow element. And then in the line item you can notice here the purchase order line workflow is also available here. So then there are certain tasks like reviewing purchase order, or review purchase order. Editable means when it can also be edited, the purchase order can also be edited. This is a kind of designer or workflow editor. So this is one click editor where we can configure the whole workflow from start to end. So then there can be also the configuring work item queues. So when in the queues, when we create a queue, we can assign someone as an administrator to the queue automatically. So what administrator of queue can do is they can change the status of queue, assign users to the queue, or unassign user from the queue, or specify the condition under which the queue is used. So a queue can must have users assigned to it who will be handling and monitoring and also processing the document inside it. So before an user can be assigned to the queue, it need to be verified that they have permission to process the document within. So for example, if the queue contains purchase requisition, so then it need to be made sure that the users who will be assigned to the queue have the permission to view those purchase requisition and also to modify those purchase requisition. Also, conditions can be entered to specify what documents are sent to particular queue, and then these conditions are also called assignment rules. Assignment rules means, and also we can create several assignment rules and specify also the sequence in which rules will be evaluated. Then there are workflow assignment hierarchies. So what are the workflow assignment hierarchies? In order to better understand the assignment hierarchy, we can consider an example in which some company requires its employees expenses to be routed to different business unit managers. So then in the company need also line reporting structure for the approval process, and employees expense line item, then if it is having certain value, should be routed to different hierarchy within his department, his or her department. So then in the approval hierarchy is required in this case. So so basically it is a reporting hierarchy which we can configure in the system, and then for example certain department will raise a purchase requisition. A key person can also raise, and any employee also can raise, but it will approve. It can be approved before going to procurement department by the head of that department. So that can also be configured. So the basic requirement here will be to configure a hierarchy, organizational hierarchy, before we can use it. And similarly, there are certain workflow parameters where we can configure, email templates. That can also be that is also possible. And certain, the templates you can already predefine in the system, and which we can use in in the workflow. So then there are, workflow versions. What are they? Basically, whenever you change a workflow, for example, certain workflow is as an initial draft is created, and then if you change any of the node, or more nodes are added into it, or certain value limits or something, conditions or anything is changed, then definitely you need to again save it, and definitely next version number can be assigned to that workflow type, and previous instances will still be running in previous version until those are recalled. The workflow instances are recalled, so those will be running under the same instances. So there is an option also to make certain workflow as a default. So whenever that document will be created, so that default workflow will be used in that one. So we can see here on the left hand side that default option is tick for purchase requisition line review and purchase requisition review. So these two versions 61 and 62 are default version, and then there is a purchase order workflow which is also created as made as a default, so that can be used also. So now let's jump into the demonstration, and we'll see how those various elements work together. Now for the demonstration, we will move to the procurement and sourcing module, and in the procurement and sourcing module we can move to the procurement and sourcing workflows. And similarly is for every of the module. In the setup you will find parameters, and then next to parameters the sequence will be the workflows for that module. So I will just show you one more. For example, in accounts payable, if you go to setup, then in parameters, and then workflow, and similarly if you go to account receivable, same in setup, and then parameters and workflow. So all the modules will have this workflow configuration form in the same place, in the same sequence. So now we will move to toward procurement and sourcing workflows. So I will just open and introduce you this form, and here you can see there in the column of default there are tick mark for certain workflows which are already configured, uh, and here for this workflow the status is cross, means it is not now enabled, but for purchase requisition line and purchase requisition and purchase order, the workflow is default workflow. And if I can show you, for example, if I select purchase requisition review, so I can check here the versions, and this will contain the version history of all the modification done in the past with along with the dates. And so we can open any of this one, but right now you can see there is one version active, which is the latest version. So that one is active, and I can mark it as inactive. Also I can export and import workflow. For example, there are two systems, so that need to be the same, of course. From production, for example, UH system, and there I configure and then export and then import it. So we will not be covering that one, but we will just see the elements involved in the configuration. For that I will actually in this purchase requisition review, purchase requisition line review workflow is inside this one. So that is part of this main workflow. So I will just open this one, and it will ask me the authentication one more time. Let me enter my credentials. Of course, this is a U8 machine, and so now workflow designer or editor will be open, and here we can see the area page where we can design our in the workspace we can design our workflow. And by default there is a start node and there is an end node, and there is no other element once you start configuring a workflow. But for this one I have configured multiple elements in this, and that I will like to brief you about that one. So one more thing, in the ribbon or at the top, you can see in the workflow here that properties, or so once I select any node, then if I open the properties, so this is same like if I right click here and I just click the properties. So it is same, either I open from here or I open from here, it is the same thing. Or I click any of the element and then I open this one, or I just right click it and then click the properties. Both are the same, both have the same effect. So what are the elements which are already configured here? So on the left hand side you can see various elements. I will show you how these are configured. For example, once the start node is there, then it will flow to the procurement, this node which is called procurement professional, required or not required. So what is this? This is basically a conditional decision, and it is kind of flow controls. So this is an element from flow control, and it can either be manual decision external to the system, and now right now it is a conditional decision. So I will just show you the properties of this decision, and here you can see for example the table behind it is a purchase requisition line or purchase requisition table. So in the lines the net amount is checked against, I mean, to have a zero value, or the vendor account is not defined, means blank value. So in either of these cases, so there can be two outcomes. One can be true and one can be false. So if any of the condition is true, so it will evaluate to true, and it will switch to purchase requisition workflow itself, which is being used here. And that is available also here. If you want to drag and drop, that is possible, and then it is in this way it is configured. So I will just show you about purchase requisition, how it is configured. Basically this is the name for this element or node, and then invoke a single workflow for all line items, or invoke a workflow for each line item. So here it is for all line items only. For all line items, this purchase requisition line review workflow is selected. So this will be open one more time. So the purchase requisition line will be open here, and so in this way, this purchase requisition line item workflow will be triggered if the condition is true. So and also this is possible to for each of the line. If for example purchase requisition has 5 or 6 or multiple lines, for each line the workflow will be triggered, means a new instance will be triggered for each of the purchase requisition line. But in this one, for all lines, it will be triggered once. So that will be in case of true, and then there will be an approval node, and this approval node is simply this node basically on the left hand side, and whenever you drag and drop it, so it will contain one step. So this can have multiple steps also, and for each step there will be some of the person or user can be assigned for each of the step. For example, I will show you. I will drag and drop another step, and in similar manner you can add multiple step. So these will be multiple levels of approvals inside one group. And I can go here on the left hand side. You can see once you click out external space, white space, and you click through mouse, then this level up field is available. Once you click the level up, so you will go to the parent level again. So this is the parent level, and if I double click it, so it will go at in depth level, yani level down. So this is, I mean, it can have multiple steps in this approval element. So this is the approval element used here. On the right hand side you can see. So once purchase requisition flow is triggered on the condition true from this procurement professional required, and condition is true, purchase requisition workflow is finished, then it will go to the approval node, which contains if I can show you, it contains only single step. And if I can open property, and here you can see on the top ribbon, you can see there are multiple commands available, like assignment, escalation, basic setting, and condition. So this is nothing. In behind there is only one form which I can open from here as well. Once I click on the node and open the properties, so on the left hand side you can see basic settings, assignment, condition, escalation, which are the same what are available separately as well. So I will just show you. If I click for example, once I select this node and I click assignment, it will directly bring me to the assignment node. So in the assignment node, of course, a user can be assigned, a time limit can be set to the user till when the action is required. Otherwise it will go to another path or further delegation if we have set that one. And also completion policy is defined here. For example, what we need in this step, whether as any of the single approval. For example, if we can put here Alicia, April, and these personas, so what will happen? What we need here? Either any of the single approval. For example, Alicia, if she approves, then it will be approved. But if we say that majority of approvers, then what happens that, for example, what will be the majority if the persons are 4? So the majority, of course, will be 3. It cannot be 2, because in two approval and 2 rejection, so there is no majority. This is a tie. So it's 3 will be majority. So that will be the completion policy in that case. Percentage of approval means if I can define a percentage, for example, 50% means equal. So equal amount, I mean it is tie, so that can be also defined, or 60%. So that will be in percentage. And all approvers means it is necessary that all of these 4 participants will approve this step. So this is the completion policy. And time limit is basically, it can be a calendar and non-calendar basis and based upon working days. So So that will be the time limit until which the the action is required. So I will just remove these elements. So this is a user assignment here, but other assignment are also possible. Like workflow user can also be, I mean, whoever is the participant that can also participate here, and then we can select here a work item owner or workflow owner or workflow originator. Originator is basically a submitter, and the work item owner means to whom the work item is assigned. So work item is just a task. It can be a task, it can be an approval step, it can be anything, manual task, or anything which is assigned to a person, so that person will be owner of that task. So then a workflow owner can also be assigned who has authored the workflow. And similar is a hierarchy selection here. So in a hierarchy selection, whoever the in organizational hierarchy, so that can also be selected in the managerial hierarchy. And similarly there is a participant also. So these are, I mean, various different types of participants here. So admin is right now assigned, which is a specific user assignment. So then, and in the condition, what will happen here? So this step, when it should be executed, or when it should run. So basically for that this conditional thing is available, and here it is selected always run this step. This is a default value, but if we for example want to skip it, so that condition we can define here, that in under this condition only this step can be executed, otherwise it can be skipped. So once we add any condition, and that in that condition the table field values are available, whatever the table behind that workflow is, like purchase requisition lines fields are also available, and header fields are also available. So here we can select if the buying legal entity or any other field, if that is equal to something, then only this can be executed, or reason, or any of the field we can select here. So that is basically a conditional step. So it will make the whole step conditional. And then there is a escalation path as well. Escalation is path where we can define a certain time limit, that for example this is an approval action, and if I add an escalation here, so what will be a escalation? For example, if the time limit is 4 hours, and calendar, if I select non-calendar based, so here if I can expand it, so the working days and 8 hours per working day, and the time start for example at 8 a.m. in the morning. So this will end for example in 1600 hours. If you add 8 to 8, it will be 1600 hours. So that will define the end time of that day, and these are all working days. So basically, and within 4 hours, if the I mean the answer is not received, or the action is not received under this step, so it will escalate to another approval or rejection. So this can be selected here if under that time period it is not selected. For example, if I select this admin user, and I define that okay, within 4 hours, if the user is not accepting, that it will directly be approved, or it can be a reject also. So this is the escalation path here, and I will untick it. So basically I have almost explained, and these are basic settings for the step, the name of the step which will appear in workflow node as well as in notification or email notification. Also the subject will also appear, and these are just a placeholders, purchase requisition number, and similarly the instruction how to complete that one. And if we want to have certain details like amount field we want to embed here, or any of the field value we want to embed it here, so we will just select this insert placeholder, and we can select any of the placeholder from tables involved in that workflow. Here there are two tables, so purchase requisition and purchase requisition line will be available, so that we can select here. So this is all about this approval. So once I select the white space and I can go to level up. So I'm back here, and what will happen once the this conditional decision or flow is evaluated as false? So it means that either there is a net amount or there is a vendor account. In any of if this condition is both of the conditions are false, because this is an or, it is not an and. So or means if any condition is true, so it will go to the true, but if both are false, so in that case, what will happen? It will go to this parallel activity, and this is the flow control which is available here, and which you can drag and drop here, and then you can link any of the node either from false or true or whatever, I mean the element you have used previously. So parallel activity is nothing, just two parallel or multiple parallel paths, and those each of the path will also support another workflow. So that's it, and I will just show you, just delete it, and I will show you the existing one. And here you can see there is a parallel branch. There are two parallel branch in this activity, and I can even add further branches as well. And I don't know what is the limit, but there are even reasonable number we can add here. And what will happen here? Basically, both the branches should end, then only this activity will be completed and the next step will be executed. So if any of the activity is not completed until then, the next step cannot be executed. And what are these branches? It is not shown here. Just you double click any of the branch here. For example, this is branch 1 and this is branch 2. If I click any of the branch, so it will have another workflow here. So if I can show you, if I click at the white space and go level up, so if I can show you also one more level, if I drag and drop a parallel activity and double click it, so it will show me two branches by default, and I can definitely add more branches as I just showed you. You can just double click it and it will show another workflow, and which does not contain any of the node. So here you are free again to create another workflow if you like. And there can be certain scenarios or use cases when you will definitely want to have a parallel activity, and that can be either two different levels of approval. For example, this is a purchase requisition, so there can be two approvals here. For example, one can be a finance approval, and once can be a procurement approval, or one can be also a departmental approval. So there can be three branches also. So you can execute those three branches together, and in that manual decision node you can bring there, and you can just then connect this one here. And then there, of course, there can be uh, two outcomes, so that two outcomes cannot go to the end, but definitely you will want to add something more here, which can either be any of the other element here. So that is also possible here, and that is basically a use case, and which you can execute as per your scenario. So I will just go back, and I will just delete the example here, and I can go to the existing example. Here I have configured a task here, this task review purchase requisition task, and if I can show you the properties. So this is basically review PR activity 1, and the in the instruction I have just similarly copied it there, and remaining node is the same which I just told you. And there can be an automatic action also here, and that is also a conditional. You can add any conditions here, and then it will for example, if I say that explanation is blank, and so then what will happen? The auto complete action, there is a condition and then there is action can be complete or reject. So either of the action can be selected, then it will based upon condition, it will trigger to auto complete this one or can reject this one. So I will just disable this one, And in the notification, this is one more thing here. And if I want to receive the notification either in the work panel here or through emails, that is also possible. In case of if the workflow, I mean this step is completed, this task is completed, or it is delegated, escalated, and escalate is when time limit is achieved, then it will escalate. Delegate is when one person is not available on is on leave or something, and he has set his on in the user option the delegate option, which I will show you. Then it will be delegated. So in that case, what message or text will be sent, that is also you can configure here. And request change is of course when the approving authority needs to change something in that document or purchase requisition, then it can be sent back to the originator or any other levels previously from where he is receiving the document. And in the reject, of course, it will go to the originator, and then he can again submit. So let's go back and execute this. And here I have just added a task to review the purchase requisition, and similarly in the other branch also I have added one more task. And in the task I have mentioned this is activity 2, or this is path 2, so it will differentiate between both. So I think I have covered everything now. And let me reorganize. So this is start, and it will go to this conditional decision. Then on the basis of true or false outcomes, if it is true, then purchase requisition flow will be line flow will be triggered, and that will end up again in the approving element. And if it is false, then it will go to the parallel activity. So let me again show you if both the cases means net amount is 0 and vendor account is also not set, so then also it will go to the parallel activity. So let me now start this trigger. And so in this case I will put some net amount value will be something, and vendor account will also be input. So it means then it will not be true, and it will not go to the purchase requisition. And if there is certain value in net amount and there is a vendor account, so if any of the condition is achieved, if any of the condition I mean is true, so it will go to the purchase requisition. If it is not true, so it will go to the parallel activity. So let's start with the purchase requisition workflow. And I will just okay, and let me go to the purchase requisition and create a new purchase requisition here. Just give it a name. For example, I will computer equipment needed. So then I can go to the add products form, and there in from the catalog I can pick few items, Lifecam HD, and there can be a natural keyboard. These two items are selected, and just press OK, so that these lines are created in purchase requisition. So these two lines are created, and I can show you that the net amount is filled in, and the vendor account is also filled in. So the PR line level workflow will not be triggered since it is filled in. If it was empty, so in that case it would have trigger. So just I will go to the workflow and I will submit for approval so that the parallel activity is started. Submitted for approval. For this workflow to work, it is necessary that the three batch jobs should be running, which I will show you. So now here you can see it has triggered our parallel activities, and this is one of the activity one. So I will just go to the uh, workflow history, and there I can show you. So here you can see the parallel branches have been started, and these are two branches, and here there are two work items which are assigned to me, and I can also see the notification which are just received 1 minute ago, and this is about work item assigned to me. So I will just clear all so that a new notification will appear now onwards. So just I can close this. There is option of recalling. Recalling means this will workflow will stop and it will be recalled in the initial state. So I will just complete it. If I reject it, so then it will be again recalled. It will be imagined as recalled. Approved one. So now you can see review PR activity 2, and basically both were simultaneously assigned to me. I will just not complete this one, rather I will reject this one. So one of the parallel activity branches I am rejecting to show you how it will, I mean both will be necessary to complete, so that to simulate. So we can once again go to the workflow history. So here you can see so this was the first step where the procurement professional required evaluated to false condition, because vendor also was filled and net amount was also there. So then let me refresh. So now it is showing me one more item. So let me go back, just close this form, and it is showing me one more work item is just now assigned. So it is saying the current record has been returned to you, or you have been asked to make a change, perform any required actions, and choose resubmit to resume processing. So one of the branches was returned, so I will again submit. So it means both of the paths should be completed, and in order, let me refresh. So the status here is showing as rejected. The PR status is now rejected, so let me resubmit. Even the lines status is showing as rejected because one of the branch was rejected. So now it is showing rejected. So little bit we need to wait again. So any of the step or any of the node in workflow is rejected, so it will go back again at the first step. So it will again be executed. Just let me refresh. Now the activity 1 again started, and that is, let me approved 1. These are parallel paths in parallel activity node, and then also without waiting the other task or work item is also assigned, which is activity 2. So let me that all complete also. Approve 2. So now it has reached at the approval node, and in the approval node now it is showing me the text that please approve purchase requisition number this one, requisition amount is this one. So it is above the requester spending limit. So I will just go ahead with approving it, and without rejecting, otherwise it will go back again to the first step. So this is approved finally. So there are multiple tasks which are as a notification I am receiving. I can just clear my notification, and similarly I can receive these notification through email. So now you can see the overall status is approved now, and the line status has been changed to approved. So in this way, I will also show through history the workflow has been completed, and we have successfully defined a workflow involving multiple elements. So almost all the elements were covered. So let me go back, and tracking details are in shown also, and this one. Time wise and date wise, everything is shown here. And also if you go at bottom level, now no more since no more work item is assigned, so it is not showing me any work item. But for example, I have selected this node, approve purchase requisition node. So The steps are also shown. If it contained multiple steps, that would have also shown here, and with my comments on the right hand side, that is also shown as a tracking history. And the initial condition was false, and everything is clearly shown here. So now this is all about purchase requisition workflow, and there are also workflow available, for example, for various financial journals. And also one setup I need to also show, and that is about batch groups. And basically batch groups are the groups in which the batch jobs run, and batch groups need batch server to be assigned. So right now the initial configuration is like this server is already selected, and it can have multiple servers, and those can also be selected here. And also there can be one server, for example, for batch jobs, and one for production tasks, or the persons or employees are working, then that server is used for production purpose, and one can be assigned as a batch server. So the batch group, every of the batch group which against which the batch jobs are assigned, that need to be having a server selected. So right now I'm using empty batch group, so that's why already there is a server assigned, but for other batch groups it's not assigned. So let me show you also uh, the batch jobs which are available in system admin module, and then in inquiries, and in the batch jobs. So if we can apply the filter of waiting, so only our execute waiting batch jobs will be shown in this inquiry. So now you can see, also I can filter it by description, because now there are so many jobs. So just put workflow and contains condition, so that only workflow batch jobs are shown in the inquiry form. So here these are three important, like workflow message processing, and workflow line item notification, and workflow due date processing. And due date is basically when certain item you have said that, okay, you are giving 3 days or 5 days to for the participant to take any action, for example approving authority to take action, otherwise it should be delegated to another level, or escalated to another level. So that is this batch job will serve that purpose. And then there are line item notification which I am receiving, and then message processing for workflow. These three jobs are basically needed in order for our workflow to be completed. So if it is not running, then of course you will face issue in workflow. Workflow will be stuck somewhere. So, and then I can also show you, for example, if we can go to the batch job. In the batch job, you can go to the view tasks. So inside batch job, there are multiple tasks which can be also available, and behind which class is running, that is also shown in this one. And there is this horizontal scroll bar, and this batch group is not showing, means it is empty batch group where which is assigned a server. So that is selected here, and there should be a batch group assigned, but in this case, because in empty the description is not set, so it means this is empty batch group, and that is already assigned. So that's why it is running, otherwise it would have not run itself. So the run location is server, and these are basically tasks within a batch job. So this is must. And then I would show you also one more thing, which is in user options. Once you go to the user options, for example, if a person is on leave, so if that person is on leave, so he or she can assign uh, uh, their assigned work items in workflow to some other person. So that is also possible, either all of the items or a specific workflow. And once you select a specific workflow, you can select one of the workflow available, and whatever workflow you will select here. For example, this is a vendor add application, so I can then delegate to some user, for example Alicia. And for example, my leave time is will start from 24th till 26th, and I will make it enabled, and then only this workflow which I have selected will be assigned to Alicia, who will be my second in command, or my standby or backup. She will be serving my position during my absence. So that is also possible. And then also this send notification into action center must be turned to yes in order for you to get notification here in action center. So that is also should be ticked. And send notification in email if you want these workflow in email to be received. If you are away from office, you don't have notebook with you, then in for example on mobile, or anyhow, if you are receiving emails, that notification you can turn on here. So and this is it for the user preferences. And then let me also show you through journal ledger. In the journal ledger, if you can go to journal setup and journal names. So there are various financial journals for payable, receivable, and journal which are available here, where you can assign a workflow as well. So for example, if I take the example of AP invoice, so in the AP invoice, you can see on the right hand side of setup or configuration steps. Here it can be, if I edit it. So these are already existing, journal definitions. If I want to create another journal, that is also possible. And here I can select an existing workflow, which will be assigned to this, vendor or AP invoice. And so it is saying that workflow already have active instances, means already there are submissions going on in approving stages, and you can view active instances and disable them through workflow admin. Do you want to save changes? Yes. So once I have assigned this to AP invoice, so that workflow now will be available. If I can go to accounts payable, and in the account payable, in the invoices, I can open the invoice journal. So in the invoice journal, if I click new, and then I can select AP invoice from the types of journal, then you can see the workflow here. It is available once I enter any of the lines, so this I can submit this in the workflow. Just let me enter a line. Input any credit amount here, and the offset will be certain expense account. So office supplies expense, and once I have entered it, and let me validate. Invoice number is not filled, just input any invoice number here. So operation is now completed, but you can notice here the post option is not enabled. Why? Because until I get approval for this invoice, I cannot post this AP invoice. So I need to just submit this for approving. So this workflow option is available at a header level, means outside. If you can go to the lines, it is not available. So this workflow is available outside. Let the job, because now job is running every minute, because of this. I've set every minute, but that can depend upon your organization, and that can be set to 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever is feasible. Let me check this. So the we can go to the accounts payable workflow, and this is our workflow which is being executed, and its status is not enabled. So just let me go to the versions. Just make it active, because right now it is not active, and that must be active. So the configuration is invalid, that's why it's not making it active. Just let me go to the workflow, and it's better to also debug. So once the workflow editor will be open, we can see what step is not correct, and we can API invoice approval, and in the user, yeah, Sarah is assigned, so I will assign to my user here. Just let me save. I can put a command what changes I have done. That is possible here. I will activate the new version. Let me refresh. So now the error has gone from here, and I can go back to my invoice journal, and in the invoice journal I can go to the workflow, and I can recall and resubmit, so that the new instance is again submitted. Recall due to misconfiguration. And that employee Sarah might not have a user assigned to her, that's why that was showing an error. Let me refresh, and now again the submit option is available. Let me resubmit. So it is showing me the work item is assigned to me. Let me go back. Yeah, so now it's showing me all the various action types where I can request change if I need modification, and I can reject to return it to the originator, which is myself here. I can delegate to another user, and let me show you that option as well. And I can delegate one of the personas or the employees available in the list, and with the for XYZ reason assigning to you for your opinion. Once given your opinion, please return it back. So what will happen, this work item will be assigned to Alicia, and Alicia will enter certain opinion of her, and then once she has given opinion, she can delegate back to me, and then I can take the decision. So for now I'm cancelling this just to demonstrate you this was the delegate purpose. And then I can also recall it if because I am originator so that's why this option is shown. It cannot be shown to the approving authority, only originator will see the recall option. So now I will approve this one. So this workflow type is available in payable to configure, but this can be assigned in the journal which are in available in journal in the setup. So where you can create multiple type of journal, and then assign to those journal multiple workflow configurations against the same type. So we have already seen in our presentation that one workflow type can be multiple time configured. So the step is now completed, and just it will receive the so now you can see the post option is also available, and now it can be posted. Post and transfer is also available. That is the difference between both are post will not post if there is any of the error in the vouchers available in this journal, and post and transfer will successfully post whatever are correct vouchers, and if there are error in certain voucher, it will create another journal for that. For now I will just post this invoice. So now this invoice is now posted, and that's it for this. And also let me show you one more thing. If I go to the journal and in the journal setup journal names, so you can see here the IP invoice to which we assign the workflow type which we configured, and we selected the approval workflow as yes. And similarly there are so many journal available here, all are finance journal, and this is one more example where another journal of same type is selected and same workflow is assigned. But we can also select select a different workflow but of the same type which we configure in accounts payable. So that is possible here, and even we can create another one of the same type. That is normally case when you have multiple journals available through which you are posting JVs, and one is for petty cash and one is for other expense purposes. So in that case you can configure multiple journals in GL, and then you can assign multiple workflows because of various level of approvals In petty cache, there are can be accounts manager, finance manager, or whatever. And then in case if the amount is huge and you have a separate journal type for that, for example, in adjusting entry, then you can involve even higher authorities, CEO, or might be any other person. So that's why a separate workflow can be configured for the different journal types. So here also the journal types are available, and this is beyond workflow, but you can set up multiple journal types and assign a separate workflow for each of the type of journal. So here it is vendor invoice, which we have already seen in the example. So I think we have almost covered all of the topics here. And if you guys are having any of the questions in workflow, and yeah, to understand the workflows, how if still you are facing certain difficulties, you can always comment or feedback under my video on YouTube. And also I have already told in the presentation that if any out of the box workflows are not available, so you can always create as a workaround a case management workflow you can select, or you can use Power Automate if you will have no issues in buying a connector for D365, and you want to use that Power Automate. But if you want to stay on the system, of course there are licensing issues. Per user license is always there, and that is costly, depend upon region to region. I think $150 per user per month is for certain country, and might be based upon region, it is different for others. So in that case, normally if people are not buying finance licensing, then of course Power Automate is a good option. But again, in the connector it is a premium purchase, so definitely that will add up again the cost. And ultimately you will shift from D365 to a Power Platform, although ecosystem is the same, but again it is external to the system. So I think I have covered almost everything. Still, if there is any ambiguity or any problem, or if you are stuck with something, just let me know through your comments or feedback, and I will try to support or help you guys. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye bye.